And the people imagine a vain thing. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
When we are successful, and we will be.
Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you...
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Watchmen Report, the 33.3 News Watchmen Report. You are, of course, right here on the CCR Podcast Network, which, if you're not familiar, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google. I think we're on Amazon. I'm not sure. I know, and we're also going to be branching out to Stitcher, Pandora, things like that. I am absolutely just thrilled about it. And of course, if you're watching the video of this, then that means you are a subscribing member to our Substack page. So thank you guys so much for your support there. And thank you for your support if you're praying for us or sending donations. Like, guys, these gifts are just, they're such a blessing. Now, I must confess, that's why we started the subscription network, because it just didn't seem right to take people's money and not give anything in return. And of course, I know that many of you have talked about how this show is a blessing for you, and I am honestly, I'm ecstatic to hear that, and that is an absolutely it's amazing to be able to do that for you. But at the same time, we feel like if you're going to give us your hard-earned money, we want to give you something in return. So thank you guys so much for that. And look, I've got a whole new microphone set. Look guys, that's a blessing for us, from you guys. So we greatly appreciate your gifts and your prayers and your support. We cannot do this without you guys. So, if you will, I want you to come right over here with me, if you will. Today, as you saw in the title for this one, we're going to be talking about symbolism and things like that. And what I want to do is I want to come right over here, right where we got it in the... So this is on our Substack page. If you are a subscriber to our Substack page, you've no doubt already seen this. But I want to talk about this real quick. And this is kind of picking up last week. A little bit of the rant we went on last week with proving all things. And this is, as you can see on the screen, it says prayer hands. It says, here we have the prayer hands emojis. A very Christian symbol for sure, right? But what if it isn't? The evidence that I'm going to show you today will prove that this sign is evil. And once I show you that, you better throw it out of your phone unless you want to open doors to the demonic realm. The truth about the prayer hands is that they're actually the pagan sign of namaste. out of Eastern mystical religious practices, such as like Hinduism, I believe is where the term namaste actually comes from. Buddhists do it. There's so many different Eastern religions that do it, right? And look, it's not to knock on any of these people. This is just, look, these cultures worship false gods, and that can open doorways to the demonic for Christians. But you also see it used in other, which this ties into Hinduism too, but specifically practices like yoga. The fact of the matter is, yoga is based in the movements of Hindu gods, which is literally an idolatrous practice, and it will definitely open doors to the demonic realm. To provide even further proof, if you Google Namaste emoji, it will bring up the prayer hands emoji as well. I don't know how much more proof one would need to get this symbol, this demonic symbol, out of their hands. This is evil. We all need to remove things like this from our devices and our chats, because the Bible says to flee from the appearance of evil. Right? I really want you to stop and really think about that. Flee from the appearance of evil. This is what the Bible says, does it not? And so, here's the big question, is now what are all of us going to do about it? This is what it goes on to say in the article. Sounds somewhat plausible, right? The problem is I took two small facts, the Namaste hand pose and the fact that you can Google the Namaste emoji and come up with, and look, those are facts. The problem is that everything that I just mentioned is all conjecture that I made up on the spot because, when I wrote this anyway, I made it up because it sounded good, right? That's what I want to talk about today. And so I think what we need to do is actually come up here. Let's go back to the beginning of the article, which is the article is titled, "Can we dial it back on the pagan symbol witch hunt?" And can we, guys? Look, I want to clarify this right now. And I clarified this in the article, but I want to clarify it right here. If you are seeing these signs and you're convicted and they make you feel sick to your stomach because you feel like they could interfere with your personal walk with the Lord, then by all means keep removing these from. But if you hear somebody say it and you're just going along with it because they're saying it's evil, then you're not proving all things. You're not being a Berean, and that it alarms me for you because that means you have no spiritual discernment whatsoever. And that should scare you too, because that means that no matter that's kind of what the Bible was talking about when it says they were tossed about to and fro like by every wind of doctrine. It's because there's no actual foundation there. And I think one of the big problems with this is people are looking for good works to manifest their faith, but maybe they don't know how. And I've got to be honest, this is something that has been driving me crazy just trying to figure out what's going on, because like literally my heart is breaking for people because they're out here not giving any biblical reason to people of why they should take emojis or children's games or anything like that, and they should just throw them out because evil. And yeah, they'll manipulate numbers, make it look really bad, but There's absolutely no proof when somebody can, it's just absolutely insane what is going on. So this is how the article starts off. It says, if you be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Mortify, therefore, your members which are upon the earth: fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil, concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. I wanted to make sure that I included all of this in here because, like I said, I think that if you're trying to remove things that are taking away your focus on God, then that's what you're doing. You're removing idolatry. You keep doing what you're doing. But people who are just going along with it because it tickles their ears, this isn't good. It's absolutely baffling to me that people who all claim to believe the scripture in their entirety can go off in several different directions. Granted, there are things in the scriptures that are not black and white and can only be gleaned through diligent study of the context. There are other things in the scriptures that can only be revealed directly through the Holy Ghost. It is evident that there are things that Christians will never 100% agree on. That's fine. But may I politely ask why so many are spending their time chasing rabbit holes that have to do with symbols such as emojis? By the way, you can see here, if you're not subscribed to our Substack, you totally should. We're going to give you tons of edifying content, such as said article. The verses above are about idolatry. Paul tells us to focus on these on things above in the context of removing idolatrous behavior from our lives. I want to say this right up front. If you read this and you have removed certain emojis, like I said, you've removed certain emojis from your favorites list because of genuine conviction, keep doing what you're doing. This article isn't dealing with that context. I see a lot of people speculate about many things, be they children's games, symbols of corporations, emojis, and they talk about why it is evil and you should get it out of your life, but they never give any proof. Sure, they'll show you a glimpse of something, whether it be a numerical manipulation or anecdotal evidence of what it reminds them of, and therefore it must be evil, and you should throw it out because of, quote, open doors, or some other religious buzzword that will make people's ears perk up. Some of the things that I have seen have been absolutely crazy. Unfortunately, I cannot share the ones I've seen because it might call out people who are just doing what they believe is right, which isn't fair to them because they're not teaching others to cut things out of their lives on no biblical evidence. I am not here to rag on people that are doing what they think is right. I want to make that extremely clear. What I am here to rag on is people who are possibly teaching things like this in the guise of holiness. But what I believe is genuinely going on here is this is a ruse by the enemy to ensure that we are being distracted from keeping our thoughts and our eyes on things which are above. And then I said I'll share this example. It's not one I've seen talked about by people I respect. Doesn't mean they haven't, just that I haven't seen it, and that's where the prayer hands thing came in. But let's get to the truth of it. The fact of the matter is, like I said, a lot of this stuff I just put together. The fact of the matter is another story exists to describe the origin of the prayer hands. And this is the first story that I came across, and ironically, when studying Namaste, one of the articles I read verified this. The origin of the, quote, prayer hands comes from a sign of submission, and I can give multiple sources that say the exact same thing. So here's a quote from a comment forum I found where somebody asked it. It said, joined hands came to symbolize submission. In ancient Rome, a captured soldier could avoid immediate death by joining his hands together. Just as waving a white flag today, the message was clear: I surrender. This next one's from the Women of Grace blog, and it says, religious historians trace the gesture back to the act of shackling prisoners' hands with vine or rope. Joined hands came to symbolize submission. In ancient Rome, a captured soldier could avoid immediate death by joining the hands together. Just as waving a white flag today, the message was clear: I surrender. Centuries later, subjects demonstrated their loyalty and paid homage to their rulers by joining their hands. In time, clasping the hand together communicated both an acknowledgement of another's authority and one's submission to that authority. And this third quote seems to be the original source where this shared quote came from. Religious historians trace the gesture back to shackling of prisoners' hands with vine or rope. Joined hands came to symbolize submission. In ancient Rome, a captured soldier, you get the point. We've read this multiple times. And that's from Why Do We Fold Our Hands During Prayer? Now, I want to clarify this right up front. I clarified it in the article. I want to do it here. This is a Catholic source. So, what does that mean? That means that it is still probably not a great trusted source, in my opinion. Because the Catholics have been known to retcon history to favor their traditions. They do it with Peter all the time. They say, Peter was the first pope because upon this rock I will build my church. Well, Peter wasn't the rock they were talking about. Peter, the rock that Jesus was talking about there that he would build his church on, was Peter's revelation that he was the Christ, the Son of the living God, right? So you can't take this as a definitive source either. But what does it show? It shows there's two conflicting stories out there, so how do you know which one's real? Because you weren't there, I wasn't there, which guess what that means? That means nobody can be dogmatic on this thing. Right? Matter of fact, there's a Bible verse about that in Proverbs 18. Basically, it deals with cross-examination, how one side seems right until the other gives their side as well, right? So to just listen to one side and throw something out, that's not biblical wisdom at all. There's things that are evidently clear, and we'll get into that in this article as well. But this is what I go on to say. This is something that cannot be definitively proven. If it cannot be definitively proven, it means that it only, quote, opens doors if you let it open doors. And the only way you could do that is with a spirit of fear. And what does the Bible say about that? 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. See, you got to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, right? And there are tons of people that do that. But for whatever reason, the one that people forget is that you've got to love the Lord your God with all your mind, which means you really got to stop and think about these things. If you're reading this and you're looking under every rock for something, quote, pagan, it is because, is it because you love God and want to cleanse your life of the unholy, or is it because you fear something in regard to paganism? And I put that question in there because it's not like I'm writing this from, ignorance. I've been the guy that looked under every rock for every piece of paganism that ever existed, and it was because there was something in there that I feared, because I told myself it was because I was being godly, but what in turn it was I was afraid that they would open doors. And it was that fear that was opening doors. Does that make sense? It's the fear. So here's some helpful context, because ultimately only you can answer that question. However, there is some context I believe is essential, lest we have, quote, a law to ourselves, as Paul says. Idolatry starts with these two commandments in the book of Exodus. Number 3, or Exodus 20, verse 3 through 4. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in earth below, or the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. So there you go. No graven images. That means no art, right? You can't have anything depicting anything in heaven, on earth, or in the water. If you got those fish statues, get them out of your house. If you've got paintings of trees, get them out of your house. You can't have any graven image. But see, the problem with that is that's cherry-picked too. Because verses 5 and 6 say, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. Big key there. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto the thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. That's what it's about. It's about being obedient to our Father. And there's other commandments that we have to keep. And if you're constantly looking under every rock because something might be pagan, well, I hate to say it, but you're missing the mark. Because there's other things you could see. Every time you look under a rock for something pagan, you could have missed an opportunity to help somebody in need. You could have missed the opportunity to give the gospel to somebody because you were too busy keeping your head under a freaking rock. Because, something might be pagan. How about we stop focusing on the negative side of it so much? Because the law was given for us to have literally, when you listen to the law of liberty, it's so you can focus on obedience and worship and things like that. And look, if there's something in your life and you're walking in the Spirit's going to convict you of it. That's why I say, if you feel convicted, do it. But if you're constantly looking for things and everything is all of a sudden pagan, just because it may remind you of something, you're missing the mark. Plain and simple, you're missing the mark. And I have no doubt we've all been there. And this isn't to deride you or drag you through the mud. This is simply to give you the harsh reality and encourage you, hey brother, hey sister, you can do better than this. You're better than this. God has made you better than this through his redemption, and we can get through this together. Look, this is what I went on to say. Now we also have some art, some sort of art, whether it's paintings or photographs. Maybe some have sculptures and statues. I know some are finicky about that, so maybe not many, but I'm sure there are some that maybe have them out by like a little koi pond or something like that. As long as we're not bowing down to them, then we have no biblical prohibition of keeping us from owning art. If it is depicting an artist's rendition of Jesus, whose likeness we do not know, then yes, we have violated the 2nd commandment, because you've taken God and you've put him in your image, right? Which is the problem with idolatry altogether, is you're taking something that doesn't need to be a god and making it a god, or you're taking something like, Jesus, whom none of us have ever seen, and we're putting him in our image, which is dangerous, because that's what we'll start worshiping. We won't worship the true Jesus. We'll start worshiping our preconceived notion of him, essentially. That, and by the way, that's the same thing the Catholic Church is guilty of. So, but to have a painting of a tree, that's not sinful. What is sinful is to pull a tree into your home, decorate it with silver and gold, and bow down to it. That's a sin, which, by the way, you have to do every time you would put a gift under a Christmas tree. Everybody's like, I'm not doing yada, yada, yada. Well, and everybody's like, I'm doing it to worship Jesus. Well, Jesus is the one, who says, I don't speak my words, but the Father who sent me. And the Father was the one who said, we don't worship our gods the way the pagans do, and the pagans worship their gods with trees and gifts. So what God are you really worshiping? Because it's not the God of the Bible, is it? So, because he said, don't do these things. You can think he didn't say it all you want. That doesn't make you right. So, to use prayer hands, or a heart emoji, or a muscle flex emoji, and these are just some of the ones I've seen, by the way, that's not a sin, guys. And there's nothing wrong. Yeah, they might remind you of something, and like I said, if it reminds you of something, it convicts you, you keep doing what you're doing, I'm not ragging on you. I'm just trying to make sure, let's make sure we're in perspective before we do it. I can't tell you how much this bothered me. I left a group that I was in over this stuff. Really and truly, and I don't regret it one bit. And I will not go back. Because, in my opinion, this group was not focusing on anything like edifying at all at that particular moment, which is a shame. It really was a shame. So so what you have to understand though, this isn't a sin; it's a trigger. And your triggers are not the responsibility of other people's. By the way, that's something they teach narcissists in counseling, is that your triggers are not the responsibility of other people. See, that was another big red flag to me, is I see people doing this and they want everybody to change it, which is what narcissists do. Now, like I said, there was not everybody that does this is a narcissist, but I have seen people showing the red flags of narcissism doing this, which is the only reason I felt compelled to do this, because these people are leading others astray. Good-hearted people that just may not know better yet. And so, as somebody that has been given a platform and blessed with a platform, I feel it's a responsibility of mine to help maybe point out the other side of this so we can just get some balance. So this is what it says. This is how the article closes out. These emojis aren't being used by people in your group chat for magic rituals, and yes, that is a thing. Witches are now using emojis to cast their spells. So, if they're using them, and they're probably using all emojis, I mean, if that makes them pagan, just the emojis pagan, then you better stop using emojis. But that's not a thing. Witches use all sorts of herbs that God gave us on this earth for medicinal purposes and things like that. Are we going to stop using those just because some lady who worships Mother Earth decided that they belong to her? Like, let's get some perspective here. Whose God is bigger? Whose God is the creator of all things? Now, did God create a cell phone? No, but he did create the men who made the cell phone, yada, yada. They chose to either make something that could be used for his glory or not, right? This is just my opinion, so take that for whatever it's worth. But you look, the people in these groups, they're not using them for magic rituals. So what's the harm? Keep this in mind. I really want you to really meditate on this thought. Emojis are nothing more than little icons that help illustrate a person's emotion in a text message, where emotion is already nigh impossible to glean in a conversation. How many conversations have you had with a person over text and you took it the wrong way? I've done it multiple times. It's easy to do. So all I'm asking is, can we dial it back on the pagan symbol witch hunt? Because I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, if this is where this, quote, truther movement is going, you can count me out, because I don't want anything to do with it. And look, maybe it'll get to the point where if it goes that bad to where the majority of, quote, Bible-believing truthers are doing stuff like this, at that point it might be time for me to ride off into the sunset. Because I'm not going to have anything whatsoever to do with this. I just absolutely refuse, guys. So, I don't know. I'm not going to lie. This topic really broke me down and really put me into perspective of why am I even doing what I do. I'm not going to lie. I thought about maybe, is it time to hang this up? I don't even know why. This is such a silly topic, but it just made me really think, like, I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing people just go along with anything and everything. I'm tired of people not using the brain that God gave them to seek actual truth for themselves. But they just, and I'm talking about a very limited few here. I don't want to just throw, crap on everybody, because it's just not the case, but it's just, that's the way social media works. It throws the few and the loud right in your face, right? And maybe that's what it is. Maybe I just need to get off of social media for a while. But one thing I do know for sure is that to hang it up right now would be one of the absolute worst things that I could do. Because when it comes to the little stuff like this, I don't see anybody else willing to talk about it. Everybody loves to talk about aliens and UFOs and, all of these really cool subjects. But I don't see anybody who wants to get down into the nitty-gritty and talk about why stuff like this could be potentially dangerous. And if for nothing else, to be that guy that says, yeah, but maybe we should back up a little bit and discuss this before we start acting like a bunch of Pharisees. Because that's what this is. This is Pharisaic, really and truly. Which, by the way, if you didn't know, the word Pharisee, Pharisees in the Hebrew is perushim, which basically means separated ones. The Pharisees were separating themselves from just about everything. They separated themselves from the Hasmoneans, who were forcing the Edomites to convert to, the religion of the Jews. And so to make sure they stay separated, they put safeguards around the Torah to make sure nobody ever broke it. But then it came to the point where if you broke the safeguard, that was just as bad as breaking that. And it got to the point where it even became worse. And I am telling you, if we keep going down this road, all of these so-called Torah, look, I don't want it. I can go ahead and tell you this. I don't want anything to do with the Torah movement at all. Nothing. I don't want anything to do with the Hebrew Roots movement. I think I'm going to go through, and honestly, if you have anything to do with the Hebrew Roots movement and you're on my Facebook, I'm going to delete you. Just because I don't have time for that crap. I really don't. I don't want anything in my life right now that isn't centered around Christ and his doctrine. So, I was going to read some actual news tonight, but honestly, 35 minutes into this, I've finally talked about this. I finally feel at peace about it. There's no need drudging up all of these. I will say this when it comes to conspiracies, because, that's kind of the role we've been on the past few weeks, and I think this emoji thing feeds into conspiracies too, because with some people, everything is just a conspiracy. Everything is some sort of nefarious purpose, which is ridiculous to think that everything would be. And you guys know me, I love talking about conspiracies, and I believe, like, we just rebroadcasted one that I still, to this day, think is extremely plausible, if not actually happening, which is where I lean to. You know, they're releasing this January 6th footage, right? I do want to talk about this real quick. You know, the footage that Tucker Carlson just released is of this guy, this Q shaman guy, right? This guy that was supposedly leading these people in this occultic ritual, and maybe he was. If he was, though, I think he was used as a useful idiot by people who are master manipulators, which I think is an extremely probable scenario, don't get me wrong. But what I'm seeing here is we've got one side saying one thing, and now footage is getting released, and the other side is saying, no, it's not, it's more like this, and the other side saying, yeah, but he's lying, and this is why. Like, I saw an article, it's like 7 things that Fox News got wrong, right? My word of caution, and take this for whatever it's worth, and I'm really speaking to myself here because, you know, I see this footage and it makes me angry that there's people who, at least from the footage, it looks like they didn't do really anything wrong, and now they're serving a 5-year prison sentence. But at the same time, there's 47,000 hours of footage that was given to Tucker Carlson. Now, I think it was on the Daily Wire that they said that, I think it was McCarthy said he was going to release the footage to the public too. Which I don't normally hold my breath when a politician says something, but I am praying that happens, just so that would be a really great good faith movement to say, yeah, we're on the side of the people, right? And look, look, my advice, because I know I'm getting long-winded on this, my advice would be, don't make any rash decisions about, you know, who's right and who's wrong. And I know most of you won't, because you're not political. Neither am I. But, you know, we haven't seen all the footage, so we can't really make any decisions, right? We've seen this guy, this Q shaman guy, walking around, and the police are leading him, but how do we know this wasn't before people started trying to climb into the Capitol, granted, even though that was on the other side of the building, and, you know, it just started out, these people were on a tour, then all hell breaks loose, and then, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, there could be context that we're missing. I don't know what happened. I'm just saying this could be a what-if scenario. But, yep, you know, that, I think what we are dealing with, I think it's very, very probable that we're dealing with a nefarious conspiracy there. But the problem is, none of us have enough facts yet. All we know is, and I can tell you this, is that if there is a conspiracy, it's almost undoubtedly a Hegelian dialectic. And I think there's useful idiots on both sides that are going to fuel that fire until a civil war could possibly happen. I mean, we're already technically in the beginnings of it. There's people on both sides of this political kerfuffle calling for national divorce. And look, guys, I'm telling you, if that were to happen, that would be catastrophic. And look, it's coming, right? It happened to Israel. The 10 split off from the 2, right? And then the northern kingdom of Israel went into rank idolatry. Judah kind of followed, but never went as far until the very end. And then finally, the father was just like, you know what? I'm fed up with all of you guys. You guys haven't kept my Sabbath year in forever. You know what? It's just time to let the land rest. And everybody was expelled, right? And that's kind of the path I see America going down right now. So, for it to split in some form or fashion would only make sense, but I'm telling you that's when, and every political commentator that I'm hearing actually talk about this is making a very valid point. If America splits, China wins, and that's when the invaders come in, and that's what happened, right? Israel wasn't strong like it was under David. It wasn't united, which was, by the way, was the first time that Israel had actually been truly united was under David. But eventually that led to the decay of both sides, which brought in foreign invaders. So, look, I won't say pray for America because America doesn't deserve God's mercy because they just keep spitting in his face, right? But we do need to pray for the remnant when this stuff goes down, absolutely. So, that's what I got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining here. I'm sorry you had to hear me complain the whole episode. But these are just the things that have really been on my heart this week. Just if you will, please pray for this ministry. That's the most important thing that any of you could do, and we're so thankful for it. Because I'm telling you, it's getting hard. It's taking a toll. There's been just spiritual attack after spiritual attack after spiritual attack, which I'm very grateful for. I'm very thankful for because it means we're, thank God we're doing something right. And of course, I will continue to pray for each and every one of you. God bless every single one of you. Hope you all have a wonderful Sabbath. And we will see you on the next show. Y'all take care.